let's get into this. All right, so enough of vagrants. So I would like to create a new folder. So should I call this lesson 11? So let's say Python for DevOps. So I believe you already know how to use our VS Code already. So I'll create a new file. Let's call this um, uh, so let's start with what can I name this? Can I say I want to give it a better name. Okay, let's say O1. Let's say let me call it intro. So your file name can be anything, but it basically must end with what? .py. Exactly. Happy new month, and happy democracy, or what they call it. Happy Independence Day. Don't mind me. You understand? Happy Independence Day, happy new month, everything. You get? All right, that's good. Let's uh, so let me know when you've set up your VS Code. So by God, we are not going to rush Python, but at the same time we are going to be rushing it. You understand? So what I mean by we are not going to be rushing this is that we are going to be like taking a deep dive into understanding what Python is and how it's good for a DevOps engineer. So especially when it comes to automation. So that is majorly what we are going to be focusing on using Python for what? Automation. Is that understood? You can use Python for a lot of things basically. So but because of our study, we focus more on the automation side of things. Exactly. All right. All right. So are we good? Can you guys hear me? All right. So let's start with this. So already I've given you what the outline is. But I'll go ahead and break this down. So when we say Python, what is Python? Python is simply a programming language, and we all know what programming language is. A programming language can be referred to as a kind of language that can be used to communicate with the computer. It's a kind of language that you can use to give a command to a computer. The same way you have the human language, we also have the what? We also have the computer language. The whole essence of a human language is for human beings to communicate with one another, to share information among one another, to share command with one another. The same way, we also can talk to the machine. We can give an instruction to the machine to perform, and we do that by what we call what? A programming language. We have hundreds of programming language available: Python, JavaScript, PHP, so many of them, so many C sharp, C plus, C plus plus, so many. You understand? So each of these programming language definitely to me they have the same concept. Every programming language have the same concept, and that is the first thing I always advise that someone should learn. Understand the concepts of a program. And what is the concept of a program? The concept of a program is simply that you need to understand is just to understand the process, which is inputs to what process. This line of code is called what? Comment and outputs. So when we say a line of code is a comment, it simply means that it's not going to be executable. So which means by the time you execute this program, the program is not going to execute this. So that is why I started it with what? The hash symbol. So that means the program is not going to execute this line of code. So if you understand this basic concept, in which even the computer system is built upon, you will understand the whole idea. Which means that when we are giving an instruction to the computer, we give an instruction to the computer. One has to do with the input you are giving to the computer. This has to do with the kind of data you are giving to the machine. We also talk about the process. What action do you want to perform on that data? What action or what kind of processes do you want the machine to perform on that data? Then what will be the output? After the machine have performed that certain input, then it has accepted the input, it performed the processes based on instructions or command you have given to it, then it give back the what? It give back the output. Is that understood? So if you understand these three things, you will know that programming is very easy. If you look at everything that we have been doing so far too, it works on these three. You give an input, you give an instruction to work on, and they give you back what? An output. Now the input can be in any form, the processes too can be in some forms, then the output too can be in any form. So if you understand these three, you are very good. So that is why the first stage of our learning, let's focus on what? On the kind of input, because every programming language have the kind of input. Like in bash scripting now, when we say bash scripting, what kind of inputs or the inputs you give to the machine, what nature are they into? Remember that in bash scripting we talk about something like what's variable. Am I understood? And we know that variable is a common concept among every programming language. There is no programming language now that you not hear the word variable. And what is variable? Someone who can tell me what a variable is?
It's attributing a number or something to a particular how should I put it now? Like we attribute something for, instead of calling this one, I don't know how to put it.
All right, you got the idea, but I think putting it is the issue. Now when we say variable means a stored memory. A stored memory. A minute, guys, please give me a minute. So when we say variable means stored memory. That means a data is stored in the memory. So that's what variable is. So which means that whenever I want to store a data, whenever I want to store something into the computer memory, we needed to create We needed to create a variable. That data will be saved in the what? Will be saved in the variable. So that is what it is. So in bash script, if you remember, we also create variable too, and we needed to understand some things about bash scripting. One thing that we understand about bash scripting, I'm trying to do this so that you can be just supposing the knowledge as well, so that you know programming is the same concepts, but the syntax differs. If you remember in bash scripting, when we define a variable in bash scripting, you can define your variable with any name. Like for example now, maybe the name of somebody. But remember that in bash scripting, you should not leave a space after the equals to. Then you can give the name of the words of the variable. For example, now if the name of the variable is Ola, for example, you know this is a valid syntax in bash scripting. Do you know that? So, and the reason why, because anything in bash scripting that you give in bash scripting, they only have one type. They only have what? One type. and that type is a what? Is a string. So which means that if you enter something like score, another variable score equals to 67, both 67 and Ola, bash scripting it as a what? As a text, as a string. So you don't have to necessarily put it around the what? A quotes. That's another thing about bash script. You don't necessarily have to put it around the quote. The guys still but understand it. But in Python, the other is different. So those are the things I wanted to be looking at. So let's start with understanding data types, because if you are going to be talking about inputs, input simply means what? The kind of data you can pass into your what? Into your machine, into your computer. So in Python, you need to understand all the data types. That means if I'm going to give a data to my machine, what kind of data can I pass to the machine? Can we name them? If you have the idea, what kind of data type do we have in Python? The first one is string.
Integer.
So talk about integer.
Boolean.
You talk about floats. I want to mention them in the order. You talk about complex. Talk about complex number. Those are all. These are not. They are all numbers data type. These three are all numbers data type. Integer, float, and complex number. They are all number data type. Then moving on, you have data types like what? Like you said, boolean. We have what we call lists. We have what we call tuple. We have what we call set, and we have what we call dictionary. So these are all the sets of data types that we have in Python. At least the primitive data types. There are also some advanced data types when you talk about data structures and algorithms. But at least the basic data types, the primitive data types. We have the strings, we have the integer, we have the float, we have the complex number, we have the boolean, we have the list, we have the tuple, and then we have the what? We have the set and dictionary. So if you understand this type of data, it simply means that if you want to give a data to the machine or to the computer, there must be in one form or the other. So understanding the types of data you are giving is very important, because the types of data too will also determine the kind of operation or the kind of processes that the machine can perform on those data. Is that clear? Understand the kind of data, the types of data, make you to also understand the kind of operation that you can perform on those data. Operations you can perform on string is different from operation you can perform on integer. Operation you can perform on integer is different from the one you can perform on dictionary. So that's why it's important that we understand the data types. Now let's look at them one after the other. Example of string data type, or how do you identify a string data type, is if I create a variable called name equals to, so I'll make this readable, so equals to, for example, John. So this is a string in Python. This is a string in Python. It is important that it has a what? It has a quote. Unlike bash scripting, it is important that these are, because if you don't put a quote, a string around it, Python will have an issue understanding. So this will be what? A syntax error, because it's going to be regarding John as to be a what? A variable. As to be a variable, and John is not a variable. That's why I can get the error that says what? John is not defined. That means that variable has not been defined, because there's no variable called John. So in this case, John, yes.
Please, what is the package, like extension that you installed that gives?
Okay. All right. I can't really say this is the error, but I believe if in your extension, I think if you have the Python extension, that should do the work. I can't really say this is the extension that is doing that work, but I believe if you, yeah, if you like check, just make sure you have Python and Python debugger installed in your extension. If you have Python will definitely be installed already, but check if Python debugger is installed. I want to believe that is one that's helping me to like debug and be able to know where the error is coming from. Is Mr. Obi with us?
The debugger is installed too.
It's also installed. So when you type it, you are not getting that error message. That's a
Yes.
seriously, I cannot say this is uh, I cannot say this is the extension I have installed that is giving me that functionality right now. Okay, can you also try okay, not error lens, not error lens. All right, I can't really say. I can make research about this and then tell you after class. Can't really say this is the extension that is doing the work. All right, so is that understood? So this is a variable. So the name here is a variable name. Understand? This is a variable name. The value that we are assigning to the variable name is called what? We call this literals. So we call it literal. If you like, call it value or literal, anyone. So, but what we understand is that this is a value I'm assigning to a variable. So Python understand that you are trying to save a data called John into the into the memory. So this is like having a basket, and the basket, maybe you have many baskets in a store. Each basket contain an item. Now you have to like label those baskets so that people don't mix it up. So the name or the variable name is like the label attached to a container or a basket, and the John is like the value inside of it. So Python understand that it's going to create a space in your memory, save this data inside it, and then attach a name so that whenever you need that data, you can always call the variable name to get the data that you need. Is that understood? So a string must have what? A quote. A string must have a quote, either single quote or a double quote. It doesn't really matter in Python, but there are some cases it matters, which we are going to see later on. So this is a string. Example of an integer. Can somebody give me an example of an integer data?
Numbers, sir.
We know numbers. Integer is a number, float is a number, complex number is a number. You understand? They are whole number. I mean example of an integer.
A whole number, 5,
Yeah.
50.
So integer is a whole number. So for example, I say age is equals to 23. So any whole number is what is an integer. So floats are regarded as what? Decimal numbers. Like for example, if I say price, the price of an item, let's say 9.99.95. This is what? This is a float. You understand? Complex number in mathematics, for those that did mathematics or vector class. So these are numbers that have real parts and imaginary parts. So vector, they have real parts and imaginary parts. So example of that is, for example, let's say I have a data called, let me call it vector equals to, so it's written like 2i 2 plus 5j. So in mathematics, this is equivalent to 2i plus 5j in mathematics. So in mathematics, but in Python, it's written as what? 2 plus 5j. So you don't have to put the I there. So these are syntax. You don't have to worry why is it written that way. It's a syntax. We all know that programming language has rules. So that is the syntax. So whoever has created this, the creators, Grid over Resom, and the team of developers have set a rules that okay, whenever you want to define a complex number in Python, it should be written this way. That means the 2, which is this whole number, is the what? Is the real part, and this is the what? This is the imaginary part. So it's like it's a vector plane. All right. So, and Python is the only programming language, at least to my knowledge, that has this kind of data types, right? No other programming language has this kind of data types. All right, Boolean. What are Booleans? Someone. What is a Boolean data type? What is a Boolean data type?
True or false?
True or false. An example, for example, status. So let's assume your status is what? Is true. So it can either be true or false. So boolean data type only take two kind of value. Either it is true or false, and that true must be in capital letter, and the F must also be in capital letter. That's the syntax. So another data types is list. What is a list? A list is a collection of multiple items. A collection of multiple items. So you can think of any kind of data that you usually want to keep, and you want to keep them as a list. Why do you want to keep them as a list? Because they are related in terms of maybe properties. So whenever you want to collect values or data that are related together in terms of properties, you define them as what? As a list. Can someone give me an example of data probably you keep at your working place or anywhere, but you keep them as a list of data? Before we now tell what a list, how to define a list in Python, give me an example. Fruits.
List of fruits.
Fruits.
List of cars.
Cars.
List of
Because they are related. The list of my employees, because they have the same properties. So mark that word whenever we are defining a list in programming. This is not just to Python. Any programming language, whenever you want to define data that are related in terms of property, they have common relations, define them as a what? As a list. So for example, now if I want to say fruits, just like you said, so fruits. So to define a list in Python, you define to what? A square bracket. And you know each of the fruits, like apple. Apple will be what data type in Python? Apple will be a string, right? So I can have what? Apple. I can have mango. I can have guava, and so many more. So you can also have list of numbers. You can have list of prices. You understand? But it is good. One thing about list that we also need to understand, at least you can put any kind of data type in a list. I can put a number inside. I can put a float inside. You understand? It's accommodated. This is not wrong. You understand? A list can take anything. It can take any other data types. But programmatic wise, whenever you are storing data in a list, store related data. You understand? Am I making a point? So that is how we define a list in Python. How do we define a tuple? So for tuple, it's also similar to a list because they are both iterable. We'll talk about what iterable means later on. They contain multiple items too. A tuple contains multiple items. But one thing about a list that we need to understand, that a list is what? Mutable. What do we mean by mutable? When we say a data is mutable, that means it can be changed. After you've defined a list, you can change it. You can remove and you can add to it. But in the case of a tuple is immutable. An example, our vowel sounds. What are your vowel sounds in English language? Our vowel sounds are what? A, E, I, O, and U. These are our vowel sounds. If you look at what we define, they have the same relation. They are all strings. You understand? But I decide to define them as a tuple. Why? Because we all know that from our days of primary school to this moment, vowel sounds or vowel letters rather does not change. And that's because they are immutable. So whenever I want to save a data, so I want to start thinking as a programmer now, you understand, which you are anyway. You understand? So which means if I'm saving a data or I'm working with a data and I needed to be saving it somewhere, I need to define the kind of data or the types of data I'm going to use. And that is because, why? Because the kind of data you want to store will determine the kind of data types you will pick. If I'm saving a kind of data that I know that is immutable, that means I don't want people to be changing, I will save it into a tuple. You understand? So, but even though some of the things people talk about is that tuple, they are not used often. Why? Because do you think in a system, in an application, you have a kind of data that you not be changing at all? Is that possible? It's rare. It's rare. There's no kind of data you want to be saving in a system as of today's world. I can't say maybe 1950 or then, but now there's no kind of application you want to be defining now as a data. You are creating a data and you say that people will not be changing it. No, because we know we're in a dynamic world now. Things change. So tuple is not usually used often. You understand? But mind you, you see them a lot, especially when you are working with pandas, you are working with numpy libraries. That's for the data analytics. And so but just know that when you see this kind of data that has this kind of brackets, is the bracket you should focus on, the parentheses. When you see this kind of parentheses, you understand, whatever you have inside does not matter. It can be a string, it can be a number, it can even be another tuple inside of the same tuple. You understand? What is inside does not matter. But when you see this parenthesis starting it and ending it, know that is a what? A tuple. And what it means that what? It is immutable. Data in it cannot be changed. You cannot remove and cannot add to it. Is that understood?
Is that no bracket, Abby?
Yeah, it's the normal bracket.
Okay.
This one is a square bracket. Alright, so let's talk about sets. So what is a set? How do you define a set? So we all know sets when we're in secondary school, mathematics, sets. A collections of, I can't remember the definition, you understand? But I remember that when we define a set, is a collection of, also a collection of related item too, or number or data, without what? Without repetition. Without what? Without repetition. Like for example, now in a list, I can have two guava. I can have two guava like this. I can have two guava. But in a set, if you define the same data as a set, which we are going to see, let's define as a set. Let me call it fruits. Let's define it as fruits underscore sets. So that's how you should define a variable name. Whenever you want to define a variable name and that variable name contains two words, it is best practice to use an underscore. We call this the snake style. So I prefer this style than using the camel casing. Alright, so fruit style. So if I want to define this as a set, you use the curly bracket. So let me just copy this data from inside this place. So I'll just copy this. Now pay attention. You know I said a set is also iterable in the sense that it's also used to store related data, but without what? Without repetition. So without repetition. So this guy is mutable. So when we say mutable, that means you can change it, and with no repetition. So you'll be wondering, without repetition, then why do I have Gova again? No problem. You see that even though I type Gova 2 times, when you print it out, it's still going to show as what? As just 1. Because a set, if you remember a set in primary school or in secondary school, you cannot store repeated words inside what? A set. Even though you have 1,000 times, that set will still see that 1 only once. You won't see it multiple times compared to what a list will see. Am I making sense? So when you want to identify a set, you identify it with what? A curly bracket. A curly bracket. You understand? Whatever is inside, remember, it doesn't matter. It can be a string, it can be a set, it can be a tuple. That's one thing about data type like list, tuple, and set. They can take other data types inside of them. So what started it and what ended it, or the kind of bracket that started and ended it, is what matters. Now let's go to one of the most used data type, which is called dictionary.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
Sorry, sir. I noticed that in the list we use, in the list and the tuple, we make use of double quotation.
Yeah.
Then in the list and the set, then in the tuple we only make use of one quotation.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
It doesn't matter. double quote or single quote, doesn't matter. So that was not intentional. So whenever you are defining a string in Python, either a single quote or a double quote, it doesn't matter. You will get to a case where it matters. But when you are defining a data that has to be a string, either you define it as a double quote or a single quote, it doesn't really matter. Where it matters, let me show you where it matters. For example, let me add another variable here called statements. Now I want to write a statement. So I got a single quote, and I want to write a statement that say, I am a boy. Now if you look at this, I want to write this statement, and what computing understand is that you see this quote as the beginning of the string, and you see the next quote as the what, as the end of the string. And because this is another string again that doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have a string that started it, you can start is giving an error. So in this case, what do we need to do in order to make this whole text a string, and I still want to maintain this single quote, because I want to say I am, you understand? So instead of using the single quote, I would rather use a double quote to enclose it like this, so that I can be able to escape that error. So Python or the programming will now see this string, which is the double quote, as the start, and it will be looking for another string, which means the end. So this is where the double quote or the single quote matters. You get?
Yes.
Mr. Obey, is that understood? Alright, so let's talk about dictionary. So we said dictionary is one of the most used programming data types, or Python data types. So how do you define a dictionary? From the word dictionary, it's like your normal English dictionary. One thing that you know about English dictionary is that English dictionary contains what? A lot of information. A lot of information. In the dictionary, you can see the meaning of multiple words, right? The same thing too, Python dictionary too also contain many informations, and those informations are recorded or saved as what? Key and value pairs. What did I say? Key and value pairs. Just the same way you have in an English dictionary. In an English dictionary, if you are looking for a particular word, photosynthesis, the word photosynthesis there is a what? Is a key. Am I making sense? The word photosynthesis is a key. The meaning of the photosynthesis is the what? Is the value. So which means if you want to look for a meaning photosynthesis in a dictionary, you just be looking for the key. You are looking for the key, which is the photosynthesis. The moment you get the key, you can now make reference to the word, to the value. So the same thing in a Python dictionary too. Whenever you define a Python dictionary, for example, let's define a Python dictionary that says what? Info. And I say equals to, a dictionary is also what? Using curly bracket. But the only difference here is that this curly bracket has value stored as what? Key and value pair. Like for example, if I say first name, so that will be the key. And what is the value? Let's say what? John. Now with comma, you can define another one. Let's say last name, another key, then semicolon or colon rather. That means I have the key now. Now the value, let's say, I don't know, Cassie. Alright. You can also have another one again, another key, age. Colon, maybe the age is what? 45. What other information do you want to store about John? You understand? Maybe his salary. That's another key. Let's say his salary is what? 45.90. You understand? What other information do you want to save? Maybe is what? Maybe is activeness. Active. Let's say is what? Is true. Is active. You can see how a dictionary works. You can start within that dictionary. I've tried to use almost almost all the data types. You understand?
Yes.
So that's how each of these data types works. So from there, you can see that a string only store a string, like a string, a single string. integer, a whole number, float, a decimal number. We don't have a double data type. Just in case you want to ask, we don't have a double data types. In some program language, we have a data type called double. So in Python, we don't have double. What we have is what is float. Vector.
Is double than me, I know.
Yeah, we don't have double. It's float. We also have complex number in Python. We have boolean, we have lists, we have tuple, we have set, and we have dictionary. So those are the data types that we have. So if you understand this, now that is what giving an input. We have given a certain input to the program. And how do you give this input to the program? You give the input to the program by storing the input or storing the data in a variable name. So all these are variable: name, statement, age, price, vector, status, fruit, vowels, fruit set, and info. They are all variable name. Now, how do you now give the result, or how do you see the results? So see all these as your what? As your inputs. Now let's jump the process. Let's talk about the outputs. How do you now see the result? How do you see the result? Is by printing it out, right? So let's print them out. And in Python, how do we print out? How do we print out in Python? We have a function that does that. So whenever you want to print something to the console, or you want to print something to the terminal, or you want to print something for the user, you use a function. We later get into what function is later on. So please mute your mic. So we have a function called print. So, and it's like this. So this is how you recognize a function. A function, we have a name and what? And a parenthesis in front. You can see that it's similar to the variable, just that the variable name only have name. This one too is a float. The function has a name too, but together with it have what? Parentheses. Mark that. That's how you recognize a function in a program. Any name that now has open and close bracket in front of it, no doubt is a what? Is a function. Now in this case, what do I want to print? Imagine I want to print name, and I'll just repeat this several times. So let me say print name. What other thing do we have there? Statement. We also have age. We also have price. Please, if you have any question, feel free to ask. We also have the vector. We also have status.
So why are we not making use of dollar sign?
What do you mean by dollar sign?
You know, in bash scripting, when we gave a variable to our
Okay.
database and this thing, when we were calling it,
Okay.
dollar sign the database and this.
Yeah, very good. That's a good point. That's a good point. So in bash scripting, whenever you define a variable like this and you want to make use of it, the same way I'm making use of it like this, we usually add what? We usually have dollar symbol in front. That's a good so this is the syntax in bash scripting, not a syntax, not a rule in Python. So thank you for pointing that out. Mr. Obe, is that understood? So in bash scripting is a syntax that whenever you define a variable and you want to make use of that variable, that means to call the value within that variable, you have to what? You have to start it by what? The dollar symbol. But in the case of Python, no. And most programming language too, you just have to call the variable name. Simple. Only in bash scripting you have to like put a dollar symbol. Some other programming language too might also have their own style too, or syntax too. Is that understood? All right. So we have status. So I'll just fruits. So fruits. So I will leave the others for you to try out later on. So it's just the same way. So okay, let me also print the fruit set because we wanted to see. Okay, don't worry. I think I will do this. Let's just do it. So fruits. We have the vowels. We have the fruit sets. And we have the last info. I have info. Now let's run this. Are we on the same page? You don't necessarily have to like code along. You can just pay attention, get your idea. The video is being recorded. So all right. So now we've understood input, and now we've understood output. For now, at least to this level, the only way you can print something out or you can get an output out is by printing it to the terminal. So now let's run this code. Now to run this code, you can click on this play button up here. You can click on this play button, so which will run the code. But because you know this, we are DevOps, right? So and we know we work with terminal a lot. I want to run this code within the terminal, so that you see how to run a code. You know you can run it. How do we run a bash scripting? If I have a file bash script, how do we run it within the terminal? Can you give me the steps that involve executing a bash scripting in a terminal? Do you guys get my question? If I have a bash script file, a script file like the one we have previously, like this, for example, in our last class, we have okay, you can see when I want to run this mysql.sh in within the terminal, how do we execute this script file? How do we execute it? Don't tell me you've forgotten. No. Have you forgotten? Alright, so let me remind you. Remember the first thing, whenever I want to run these scripts, the shell scripts, the first thing you change the mode. We change the mode, right? We change the mode to 755 so that make it executable. Then after that, you give the what? You give the name of the file by pointing to the directory. Remember we did something like this: mysql-mysql.sh. Why? Because the mysql.sh is within the MySQL folder. You remember this? But before we can do that, we have to what? Change the mode first to executable. So, but in Python, you can click on this play button, especially if you are within an IDE, which we are using VS Code now. Every IDE has their play button that I can use to execute a code. But let's run this within a terminal. The first thing I will do is to change my directory to my lesson 11 directory. So let me right click on this lesson 11 and say open integrated terminal. So that changed my directory to my project folder. Alright, let me clear my terminal. So and you can see if I do ls now, you can see that the only file you can see inside that directory is what? 01 intro.py. Now to execute this,
what if we don't press the run Python file there?
It will work. It will execute. It will execute. But I'm just trying to like go ahead.
I want to ask you, see this play button, has it always been there all this while that we've been good?
It's been there now, but it will not show. It will not show if it's a Python file. If it is not a Python file, if it's not a Python file, it will not show. Like for example, let me select this nginx configuration. Okay, you can see when I select nginx.configuration file, does the play button show? It doesn't show because this is not a Python file. You get? So, but for the sh, for the bash scripting, you know it's not supposed to show too, because this is not a Python file. It's not supposed to show. But because I have a an extension installed that can allow me to run a bash script file using a button rather than coming to the terminal. That's why you also see a play button. So instead of you coming to change the mode and typing the name of the file in your terminal, you can also install an extension and you can always click the play button. And I think the name of that extension, if I should check right now, so it's bash run button. You can say bash run button. When you have this extension bash run button, have it installed, it will give you a play button. So anytime you want to run your bash script, you can always click the play button. But you know that this play button will not work for us if we are in a remote server. You know that. You know that, right? Aha. It will only work when you are in your VS Code and be able to work with it. And now back to this guy now. So how do we execute our Python command? So to run your Python file, to execute your Python file, just start with the command Python, and I think I can just check my version first. Let's check the version of Python I have installed. You can say I have Python 3.11 installed. So that's the Python you have installed. Now to now execute, you can also use Python command. Now the name of the file, in this case the name of my file is this. So once you give the name of this file, Python this. So if you want to run a Python script, we also call Python a scripting language, so that you may know. That is why it's good for what? Automation. Bash scripting is used for what? Automation. Why? Because it's a scripting programming language. Now Python is also a scripting programming language, and that is why it's also used for automation. Things like DevOps, many things, automation in DevOps, IoT, and all of that. So if I hit enter now, you can see you have the results all thrown out to you. You can see I asked it to print name. Name here is just a string, so it said name, and the variable name is what? Is John. You can see name is John, statement is I'm a boy, age is 23, price is, so that means it's only printing what? It's printing out the variable. So it's printing out the value rather within the variable. So I'm calling the variable, it will locate the variable within the memory and pick out the data from it, then show it to my user. Is that understood?
So, the fruit, the list of the fruits,
Yeah.
is it not supposed to print it without, like, just name those fruits instead of putting all those parentheses they did?
Alright, it's going to put
I don't know
them.
if you understand
Yeah, I
what
understand that the moment it's printing them out, it's not supposed to put the quotes around it. It's still going to put them.
Yes.
It's going to put them. That's just the way it works. It's just that's the way it has been created actually. You understand? That's the way it has been created. But if you look at this fruit set, now you will notice something about that fruit set. Look at the way I wrote my fruit set here. The fruit set, we have apple, mango, guava, and guava. But what do you see here? Is it so we have guava, we have one is not in the same order, and two, you see guava did not appear twice. It's not duplicated. That's what I mean by what? No repetition. Set does not store duplicate. So which means if I want to identify a duplicate, if I want to remove duplicate from a data, I can always put it within a set. Alright. So another thing you also see that the order is not in the same way, and that's because sets try as much as possible. Whenever you put a data in a set, you are arranging in what? In a specific order. I think in ascending order. You understand? Yes.
Is there any data type that identify duplicate?
Is there?
Any data type of Python that identify duplicate?
I don't get that your question. Do you mean like a data type that will identify if there's a data type, if there's a duplicate somewhere?
Yes.
No.
Like,
No, that will not be a data type. The work of a data types is to help you to save data now, right? It's help to save data. So when it comes to identifying data types, what you will ask is that is there a function that can help us to identify data types within a data and not to even remove it? Aha, that will be your question. And yes, that is possible. We have libraries that do that. We have function that does that. But when it comes to data type just store data. So in this case now we are seeing the way this data type store the data. We saw that a set, whenever you store a set in a data, if you like put duplicate inside, the guy will still store it without any duplicate. Is that understood?
It's like this guava, mango, and apple. You change it to from apple, mango, and guava.
Yes, because it's
So
yeah.
They're not in order.
No, they are in order. It's to you that they are not in order. Why? Because what it does is that the computing convert it to what? It convert it to binary. You understand? So it uses the binary to arrange them in a specific order. So if you convert the text to binary, so probably guava has come first before mango. To you in an alphabetical order, you think that apple come first. No. But in the binary code, guava come first. So it converted them to I think in hexadecimal or something. I cannot remember that. So that's why you can see that they are arranged in that order. So you can read more about that online actually. So that is clear. Now we understand all the data types, right?
yes,
All right. So I'm going to create a new file. So I'll call this 2, and this is going to be what's operations, or let's call it operators .py. Now this time around we want to look at the operators you can perform with what each of these variables, each of these data types rather. What are the kind of operators you can perform with them? So already you've understand that whenever you see any data types, you understand you can identify them now. Whenever you see a string, you can identify it. Whenever you see a number, you can identify it. Whenever you see an integer, a float, a complex number, it's a boolean, a
Now, what I
list.
want to ask for this price, must he have, must he put point something? Can't we have a whole price like 100, like 200?
And your price can be a whole number. It's possible. I'm just trying to explain what a float look like, a decimal number look like. And price is one of those things that usually take decimal number. So that's why I use that as an example. So there are many data that can have a decimal number. So whenever you say decimal number, just know it's what is a float in Python. You get? Okay. Is that clear, guys? Okay. Now let's talk about the operators. So I'll start with the string operators. Can somebody give me an example of a string? So Mr. Obe, give me one example of a string data, and Mr. Elijah, give me one example of a string data very fast.
Adebayo.
What do you mean by Adebayo? What do you mean by Adebayo?
It's string data.
Yeah. Is it the name of somebody or a place or what? You have to give me the variable name.
Somebody.
It could be a word, it could be a single word, it could
The
be a
name of
sentence.
somebody.
And what I mean that what variable, what kind of variable will it be? So the data is correct, right? So I'm not saying it's not correct. So another example.
Hello, one.
Hello. Oh well, we actually broke that jigs actually. The first programming language you write should be hello world, and for the first time we break that jigs, right? So the first program everybody used to, okay, I think because we've written it in bash scripting, so okay, I think we didn't break it. All right, so somebody said hello world, so let me say that as what? Let's say greeting. Let's call it greeting equals to hello world, and I'm going to add my own. I will say country equals to Nigeria. So this is how a string look like. So when we are not talking about the operations, what are the kind of operations you can perform on a string? So the first one I will love to show you is how to check the data types. How do we check data types? Already we know that this is a data type, right? We know that this is a string data type, but in Python too, you can also check the types of data type programmatically and by using a function. So if I say print, that will print something, and let's say I want to print out the data types. So how do you check data types? You use a function called type. So mark those functions. Now we have seen another function again, type. What type are we looking for? We are looking for the type of name, and let me duplicate that, and let's also look for the types of greeting, and let's also look for the types of country. Let me also add another one. Let me see, phone number, and let's say this is equals to, let's say 090 blah 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 blah. So let's also check for this data type. So before I print this out, what do you think the result will be? Someone? What will be data types about this variable? Are you guys there? I love your response now. You should know I will always ask for your response. Hello guys, can you hear me? So what do you think the data types will be? What do you think data types about this variable will be? Mr. Elijah, what do you think the data types of this variable will be? Mr. Obi, don't tell me you don't know. Eh? You can't tell me you don't know now. What Adebayo is what data type? What type of data is Adebayo?
Adebayo is name.
And what type? We know is a name, a variable. What type of data? Based on our last lesson now, what type of data is Adebayo? Do you know the data types that we have in Python?
Yes, that's what we have to set dictionary.
So what type of data will now be Adebayo? What type will Adebayo be? Is it going to be a string, an integer, a float, a complex number, a boolean, a list, a tuple, a set, or a dictionary?
It's going to be a string, sir.
It's going to be a string. It's going to be a string. This should not take you an hour to answer. It's going to be a string. Why? Because you can see that there's a quote around it. There's a string around it. The moment you see a quote around the number, around the value, is a string. This is a string. This is a string. Even this one is a string. Even though it contains numbers, they are all strings. So this should not take you an hour to answer at all. And you can see, the moment I print this out, you can see that Python tell me that all these data are what? They are strings. So which means that the value or the data you have inside does not matter. What you should focus on is what started it and what ended it. The moment a quote starts a value and ended the value, is automatically a string. What is inside does not matter. Alright, I hope you understand. You got that. Alright, so that's for checking data type. Let me comment this out. So let's also see other operations you can perform with strings. And in this case, we talk about concatenation. You can concatenate one or more strings together. And what does concatenation means? This means what? Join. Joining one or more strings together. How do you do that in Python? So you can do that simply by saying, let me print it out, and I will say concatenation. So I want to join two strings together. So let's assume I want to join greeting and name together. How do you do that in Python? Maybe I should do it on a separate line. So let's say a variable called results equals to, now let's join greeting. So it's just by saying what? Greeting, which is a variable, plus name. That's how you do concatenation in Python. What you see here is what? Is a concatenation. I hope that is clear. So because this is a string and this is a string, so to perform concatenation in Python we use the plus operator. So this means concatenation. So if I print out the results, and let's see what we have. Now you can see this. You can see after my concatenation string, I have the result, and the result is the what? The concatenation. That means it join hello word to what? To Adebayo. But you can see that between hello word and Adebayo there is no space, so it doesn't add a space to it. If you want to include a space, you can do that by joining it with another what? Another string which has a what? A space. This will now mean how many string? 3 string. This is one string which is a variable. This is another string which only store an empty space, and this is another what? Variable which is Adebayo. If you run this again now you can see I have hello world, then space, then we have what? Adebayo. That's how we do concatenation in Python. Is that clear? Alright, another thing you can also, another operation you can also perform with string is repetition. You can repeat a string more than one times, and you can do that by using the what? The star symbol. That is the multiplication symbol. Imagine I want to repeat hello world. I want to echo hello world 10 times or print it out 10 times. To do that, you can just say print. Let me also add a string repetition. So, and I can do that by saying greetings times 10. So if I say greeting times 10, this means what? Repeat greeting 10 times. And if you do that, now you can see we have hello world, hello world, hello world, hello world, hello world. If you count this is going to be what? 10 times. So when it comes to operators you can perform with a string, you can concatenate and you can repeat a string by using the what? The star symbol, that is the multiplication symbol. Exactly. Alright, so those are the kind of operators you can perform with what? With a string, either using the plus, which means concatenation, and using the what? The star symbol. So can we join a number with a string? Can we join a number with a string? Can I do something like this? Print 5 plus name. Can I do something like this? 5 plus name. The name here is what data type? Somebody. The name is a string. The 5 is what data type? Is an integer. So can we add a plus between both of them? Alright, so Mr. Elijah said it should go, right? So let's run this. So it said you can't see my screen. Hello. Alright, check your network. So if you look at this now, we have an error here. We have a type error telling us that this is not possible. And the reason why this is not possible is because you cannot join, or you cannot add a number together with a what? A string. Because with this plus operator now, the machine is confused, the program is confused. It doesn't know whether you want to do concatenation, which means just joining 5 and name together, or you want to perform what? An addition operator. You understand? So you cannot use the plus operator or the addition operator between a numerical number and a string. So that's why you are having an error saying what? Unsupported operand. That means it doesn't support the plus operator between an integer and a string. So that gives us a what? A type error. Is that understood? So I just wanted to add that to it. Now that we understand the operators and we saw that this cannot be possible, so you don't do this. Don't do this. This is not supported. Now, and that's what we want to talk about our strings, are what we call what? Strings method. Strings method. So the reason I'm commenting this code out is because I don't want them to be executable, so that we can only focus on what we want to discuss. So when you are practicing your own, you can always test them one after the other. So let's talk about string method. What do you mean by method? In this course, one thing that you understand is what is method and what is function. I've told you what function is, and you've seen an example of a function like print. Print is a function. Method and functions are closely related, but there is a major difference. There's a clear difference between them. We'll get into that later on. Don't let us stress ourselves with it. But when we talk about string method simply means what are the capability, what are those functionalities that you can perform on a strings. That means if you have a string letter, if you have a string value, what are the operations, what are the functionalities you can perform on it. Let's look into that, and I will show that by using the terminal. So if I come to my terminal and I type Python command, this will go into the Python interactive command or interactive shell. Now we understand I have a data type called string, right? If I want to see all the functions or methods that I can perform with a string, you can use a function called dir, which is a function, and then you put in the type, so string type. So we've seen that earlier on, that string is represented with what? str, right? So this dir will give me all the functionality that a string can perform, and if I hit enter, you can see a list of methods. Are you guys with me?
So I don't know how to get those plenty.
That means you are not following me now. If you don't understand how I get this, it shows that you are not following me.
And after you just wrote the string, it just pop up.
I just hit enter now. It's a command. That's why it's a command, and that's why I'm explaining this to you. Whenever I use the function, just like the way you use a function print, and you put something inside the print function, and you run your code, it print it out. It prints whatever you give to it, print it out. The same way the dir too is a function that has been created within the Python library to give us all the function that a particular data type can perform. So this is a data type. str is a data type. Just like we saw earlier on, is a class name. Is a class name for every string object. So when I say dir string, it means give me and I hit enter. That means to run it in a shell. So it give me all the functions. This is it. Alright, share your screen. Alright, so please, I need you guys to follow. Please, I beg you guys, just follow. please. So the reason why your code is not running because you are inside the terminal, but you didn't go inside the Python shell. You didn't go inside the Python shell, not by saying cd. It's just by typing Python. That's why you can see me, I type Python. So the moment you type Python command, it will go inside the Python interactive shell, whereby you can now start writing your Python code within a terminal, within a shell, within an interactive terminal. So it's like the way you use MySQL when we're doing Nginx. You understand? When we type MySQL and we're able to go into the MySQL client server within the shell script. You understand? I'm not using a file. So that is the idea of what this interactive terminal 2 is. It's just usually you can use them to test the code very quick. You understand? All right. I hope that is clear. All right. Is that clear? All right. So now once you run that, now you can see the dir strings. We have all the list of functions or methods that a string can perform. You see all of them in a string. So for Mr. Elijah that was asking that when we printed a list, it's not supposed to be showing the quotes. You can see that is the way it has been defined. That is the way the program has been created. Even though you print out a list, it will still show what's inside the list as a string. So you can see that we have different methods. Each of these strings means a method name, which we are going to see later on. Each of these one that has underscore, we call them the dunder method or the magic method. They are not important to us right now, but you can see the one without the underscore, right from what? Capitalize down to the last one. These are our focus. I'm not going to be going through each one of the method one by one, but if you can get the whole idea, get it. They are all the same thing. Now you can see that we have the methods: capitalize, case fold, center, count, encode, ends with. These are different methods you can perform on a string. So when you hear the word capitalize, and we said is a method you can perform in a string, what do you think that will mean? Mr. Obi, what do you think that will mean? Hello guys.
To turn our system to uppercase.
Exactly. So to capitalize, not uppercase, because there's also another method called uppercase, but at least to capitalize it. So Python has a method that capitalize a string, which we are going to see. We also have one for case folding. I've never used this before, but you can always check online to see how what they do and how they do it. You can center a string, you can count a string. If you want to count how many times a string appear within a string, you can use this. For example, now if I have Adebayo and I want to see how many times A occur in Adebayo, I can use the count. We have encode. We have ends with to check if a string ends with a particular string. We have expand tabs. We have find to find a string, just like like searching for a particular string within a particular string. We have format map. Index is alphanumeric to see if a string is an alphanumeric. Is alpha to see if a string is completely what contain an alpha. You understand? Guys, please give me a second. Let me pick this call, please. All right. Is this making sense now? Is it making sense? Hello.
Yes, sir.
All right. So these are all. So you can see them one by one. So let's just try some of them out. Let's try some of them out. You can see lower. You can see upper. You can see join. So I will just probably let me write some few ones that is very common that you use often. So I will just type them out so that we can test them out on it. So like capitalize. So like I'll just write some few ones out, and you see that to use them, they are very very similar. Is decimal to check if a string contain a decimal. So let me just put that to, so is digit, alright, is lower, is numeric. So basically join, split, lower, so many of them. I'll just leave the rest for you to go and check later on. So you can check them up online. So let me exit out of this interactive shell, and you can do that by typing exit function. So this exit out of it. Alright, so now we are back. Now let's try some of them out. So we have some variable name, greetings, and so on. So let's try it out. So basically, let me start with the capitalize. So because of this capitalize, let's turn this text to all small letters. So I'll turn them to all small letters, so that by the time we make those changes, you'll be able to see what the changes look like. So now let's do this. So if I go ahead now, let's try the capitalize, and I say print. So since we are trying capitalize, now let's capitalize the greeting. So if I say greeting, so this is how you use a method in Python. You call the name of the variable, and then use the dot operator. You can see the moment I enter the dot operator, the IntelliSense in VS Code gave me all the functions. So you can see it's nothing to cram about. It gave me all the functions you can perform with a what. So it gave you all the functions, or method rather, that I can perform with a string. So you just need to select from any one of them. So for capitalize, I'll type what capitalize. You can see, and I hit enter. So this give me the capitalize, and you can see if you are using your VS Code, this one of this my VS Code is good. It's also giving you a kind of doc string about what this method does, and you can see it helps you to return a capitalized version of the strings. So, and you can see that it doesn't accept any argument. You will know what an argument is later on, but what you see that when you call this function capitalize, you just have to open and close the bracket. You don't have to put anything within the bracket. So I'll just say open and close. So this is how to define this. So let's run this. So if I click on this guy, so let's use the button this time around. Now can you see what I have? So this is the hello world I have here, all in small letter. But what do you notice about the result, about the capitalize?
The first letter is capitalized.
So that is what capitalize means in Python. It capitalizes only the first word, only the first words. So compared to what you use words, print. So let me try the other ones. We have also our call upper. So and I say greeting dot upper. So can also have print maybe to lowercase. So let me convert the country to lowercase. So if I say country dot lower, because obviously it's a string, so this will work on it. I say print, and let's try. We also have the fourth one. There are 4: capitalize, upper, lower, title. So there's another one called title as well. So I will use that with the greeting. So I say greeting dot title. So now let's run this for. Alright, I think I'll go with my use of command. Alright. All right. So can you tell me the difference between the four of them? Very quick. Very quick.
Okay, the first one, the first letter was capital letter.
All right.
Then the second one, we turned everything to
So uppercase. Then
then the second one,
everything to lowercase.
then the last one.
So the first letter of each word. So that is just the difference between the both of them. So these are what we call methods. So it means the data is available, but method means actions or functions you can perform on those string, either to just transform them, basically to transform them to look some a different way, you understand, or to do some operations on them. So let me also use some other ones, like for example, especially this one that I have with end with. So you can use end with, for example, to check if somebody enter an email. For example, I said so end with, and I want to check if something end with gmail.com, for example. So imagine I said maybe I should enter the email up here. So let's say email, so equals to, let's say, example at gmail.com, and you want to see if this email is a valid email. So I can say email, since it's a string, dot end with. Now you will notice something about this. When I call this function, what do you notice? Unlike the every other method I've been calling, this method has an argument inside of them. They have an argument inside. You can also look at that from here. So they have an argument. That means you must pass something inside of it. So one is the suffix, which is the compulsory one. We have the start and we have the end. So the most important one, which is compulsory actually, the compulsory argument is what is the suffix. And we know what suffix means. That means the word that ends a particular string or a text. So if I want to see if this email ends with, maybe I want to see if it's a Gmail email, and let me also try another one. So that would be gmail.com, because it must end with gmail.com, and I want to see if another one end with yahoo.com. So if I execute this guy, now you can see what I have. The first one said true, because truly the email ends with gmail.com, and the other one say false, because the email does not end with yahoo.com. I hope that is clear. Alright, so the same way, and I think this will be the last one I'm going to test out. So how about Mr. Obi? You're not joining again. Alright, so let's also try his alpha. So you already know what is alphanumeric does. So based from the word is alphanumeric, that means this kind of method we basically just help us to check if a text is an alphanumeric. That means does it contain numbers and numbers and alphabets, basically. So I don't think I actually need to test that. So it's just going to return what boolean 2. So if it contains numbers, if that particular string contain numbers and letters, we are going to have true. Is alpha basically will just help you to check whether it contain alphas. Is decimal, we help you to check if the string contain decimal. Is digit, we check whether it contain what numbers, integers. So you can read more about that online. Just go to Google search and then search for methods with what in strings, and I think I can recommend some for you. So just go online and just see strings method in Python, and then you can practice as much as example. So you can try from W3 School, from geeks.com. You can try from Programmers. These are so, but there's a particular one I'm looking for from which I can get some from Free Code Camp. I love their resources. So let's see if I can get some from Free Code Camp. All right, so look at this for example. Now you can go with any one of these. I think string method explain with example. So can be able to like just play around with those codes, right? Play around with those code and using find. So and I think I will just I can say replace method, how to look for a string. So you can see if you have a string data, you can use the replace method to look for a particular text, then return it with the new one, and you can give the maximum times, you understand, the number of times you want this to be repeated. So let me just share that resources with you. Knowledge is good. Anywhere pick the knowledge is fine. Anywhere, so far is the right knowledge. All right, so you can test that out later on. So this is a summary of every operations we can perform. If you know that, okay, whenever you have a strings, you can do concatenation, you can do multiplication, which is repetition. You can multiply a number. We can multiply a number with a string, so that string can occur a number of times. But you cannot add a number to a string, because the guy will be confused whether you want to perform an addition or concatenation. These are rules in Python. It might not be the same thing in some programming language. And then we'll talk about the methods. Talk about method, and we saw that can perform method like can capitalize a string, you can do an uppercase, can do a lowercase, tie to end to it, and can check more of that online, which is the source I sent to the group. Another thing that we also need to talk about methods is about a string is accessing string. How do you access the strings? So let's comment all these out as well. So how do you access a string? What by accessing a string? So far so good. We saw that there's a variable called name, which has Adebayo stored. We have greeting, we have country. But one thing that I want you to know, or let me ask a question: is a string mutable or immutable? I don't think we mentioned that in the first part of the class. Is it mutable or immutable? When I say mutable, can you change the character or the item within a string?
Yes.
Alright, so when you say yes, that means I can change the A in Adebayo. I can change it to Y or something else. Is that what you mean? Let's respond.
Yes, you can change it. You can change it, sir. We can change it.
Alright, now if you say you can change it, so you are correct and you are also not correct. So probably because you have seen that you can do replace in a string, and that's why you thought this is possible. Actually, by nature, a string is mutable. Is mutable. You cannot change it. So anytime you try changing the character in a string, just know that you are creating something different. You are creating a new stuff, and that is why you see even from the source I shared online, where you saw that find, you see something interesting here. You can see when they say replace. Please look at this. When you use this replace, what do you see? It said replace the is. That means look for the is in this character, in this string. Replace it with what? Was. Now when it was replaced, what do you notice? The result was assigned to a what? A new variable. Is that understood? I'm not feeling you guys though, seriously. What's going on? Alright. So what I'm saying here is this: we have a string that have a certain character, a certain text, and we are saying that can we remove something inside and replace it with something else? You said yes. So I'm trying to show you that truly we can replace the character in a string by using a replace method. But one thing that you notice that when you even replace it, you save the new result to a new variable. That means I cannot say okay replace it and still use this same variable. You understand? So because string is mutable, you cannot change it. But anytime you are changing it, just know behind you that you are creating a new one, not that you are changing it. When we say we change something, that means you still maintain that thing, but you just change a particular thing from it. But unlike a string, is mutable, is immutable rather, is immutable. You cannot change it, but you can create a new version of it. All right. So if that is clear, a string is what is immutable. It cannot be changed, but mind you, it can be recreated. All right. Now, when I'm talking about accessing the text, I mean, is it possible also access each of the character in this particular string? Because right now a string is a word, is like to us is like a word, right? It's like a word, but those words are made up of characters. Like for example, Adebayo is made up of multiple characters. A is a separate character, D is a separate character, E is a separate character, B is a separate character, A, Y, and O, they are separate characters. So but they all form what Adebayo. Python does not know what Adebayo is. Python does not know. Programming does not know what Adebayo is, but at least you know A, you know D, and know he. So we can access each of the character, each of the item within this particular string. That is what I'm saying by what accessing. So when we are accessing something in programming, there are two ways you access a data in programming. We call the first one what? Indexing. You can index a string, and this one has to do with what? Indexing means accessing one item at a time. And the other one is what? Slicing. You can also slice a string, and this one has to do with what? Accessing multiple item or multiple character at a time. So it means that if I have Adebayo, the name variable Adebayo, let me put it right here so we can all see that. So if I have this variable here, that means I can access each of the character. I can call out the first character, I can call out the second character, I can call out the third character one after the other by using what we call indexing. So let's try it out. Let's say for example I want to index the first item in Adebayo. So I want to print it out. I will do that by calling the name of the variable, which is name. And normally when you say print name, you know this will just print Adebayo for you. But to index, how do we index? Is by adding a square bracket in front of that variable. Then you now give the index position of that character. Yeah, the index position. That means the position in terms of number. Like for example now, A in Adebayo will be in what index position? 0. And that is because of program start counting from what? 0. So it's as simple as that. So this means that look into the name variable and give me the value in the first position, which is index 0. And if I run that, you can see we have what? We have A, which is what? Which is in first position. The same way D will be in what position? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that means the highest index you can have in this guy is what? Is 6. What happens if you try to call a position that is not available? Like try to call 7. What it will give us an error because obviously that position is not available, and you get an error that says what? Index error. So you get an error that says string index out of range. You are biting more than you can chew. You don't have a value in that position. Is that clear? So that is indexing. And one thing in Python programming, aside I can index from the what? From the front, from 0, 1, 2, 3. You can also index from the back. Indexing from the back means what? You can index -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, and -7, because obviously we don't have -0. So it starts counting from the back with -1, -2, -3, and it's the same way. I can just say print name and I say -5. So that means count from the back and give me the what? The -5 index. And that will be what? That will be E. from the back. Is that understood?
Hello.
Yes. Is that understood? Alright. So that is indexing, by the way. So another thing you can also do, you can also index and you can also slice. So slicing means what? Getting multiple items at the same time. So for example, if I want to get the first three characters, so I can do that by saying from position 0 to what? So to get the first three character, this will be from one position to one position. Mr. Obi. The first three character in Adebayo will be from what? It will be from what position to what position? Are we together? Hello guys. Can you guys hear me? Hello Mr. Elijah, Mr. Obi. Can you guys hear me?
Network, you. Hello, sir.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Can hear you now, sir.
So I said I want to slice the first three character from Adebayo. So slicing the first three character will be from what position to what position?
0 to 2.
So 0 to 2, and that's it. Because obviously you said this is 0, 1, and this will be 2. Alright, let's run that. So let's pay attention, please. Now you can see when you say 0 to 2, what do you get? We are not getting the first three character. Instead, we are getting the first two character. And why is that? The reason for that is because in Python, the stop, I mean this stop here, where you said it should stop, is not inclusive. No. Yes, it's not inclusive. So take note of that. Even though you said to 2, 2 will not be inclusive. So it will only get to 0 and 1. So take note about that. This is something about Python. Whenever you are dealing with a range in Python, the stopping points are not inclusive. So that now for us to get to this position 2 now, what do you think we need to do? We can increase the index to 3 just because we want it to be inclusive. But we know that 3 will not be what? 3 will not be inclusive. So that's how range works in range works or slicing works in Python. So and that is that for slicing and indexing. And I will round this up by what? By checking the length. You can also check the length of a string. You can use that by using a function. So by say print length. So how do we print the length? You can print the length by using a function called len, or call it length anyhow. So and give a variable name len. So let's also try it with the greeting. You can also print the length of the greeting. So and let's see what this gives to us. So as you can see, the length of name is 7, while the length of greeting is 12. So these are all everything that you need to know about strings. Alright, remember we can concatenate a string, we can repeat a string, we can check the method, we can perform method on a string, we can index, and we can slice a string. So and we can also check the length of a strings, and know that a string is what? Immutable. They cannot be changed. Whenever you change any part of a string, you are actually recreating a new string. Alright, so that is that with string method. I think I should rename this file to strings.
No.
Right. So I'll just rename to strings. So we discover our string.
No. Okay. Because it's still open on the terminal. I want you to show hand that.
You said what?
Mine used to hang whenever I'm renaming a file and it's still open on the terminal. It will take a long time before it changes.
All right. Okay. All right. So let's create another one to talk about. So I would say this time around, let's talk about numbers.py. So when we talk about numbers, and when I talk about numbers in Python, we are talking about integer, we talk about floats, and complex numbers basically. So they are whole numbers. So when we talk about these guys, what operations can you perform with it? And I don't think we need to go far with numbers, because we all know that numbers, first of all, are they mutable or immutable? Can you answer that? And numbers,
Mutable, sir.
they are mutable. That means they can be changed, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that means if I have the age of somebody to be 23, I can change the age to be what? 24. Abi?
Yes, sir.
No, you are not correct, because we know that 23 is different from 24. So when you change
Yeah,
it,
but what if the person now grow up and want to change it?
and that means it's a new number. It's a new number. You created a new number, not changing the existing one. Are you getting the whole idea about changing and not changing now? 23 is different from 24. So if a number was 23 before and you change it to 24, you just created a new number. So that is the
Okay,
idea.
so in what scenario can we use immutable, or can we use mutable? Sorry.
Things that are mutable are like lists.
Okay.
List, tuple. No, tuple is not mutable. List and set. You can remove something inside of a list, just like a basket. For example, a basket, you have some balls inside the basket. Inside that basket, you can put a new ball inside the basket, and you can remove an existing one. It still does not change what the basket is all about. So you just need to know that. So string are immutable, and numbers too are also immutable. You get? So all right, so let's just put some example. So basically, what are the operations? So we've said this is what they are immutable operations that you can. So basically, arithmetic operations, basically. So arithmetic operations. So when we talk about arithmetic operations, we are talking about what? In Python, we can perform addition, can perform subtraction, can perform multiplication, can perform division, can perform modulo, can perform exponential. So we talk about the basic one first. Exponential. Square root requires, well, okay, we talk about that too, don't worry. So these are the basic one you can perform. So basically, let's just do something with that. So imagine I have a variable, say number 1 equals to 34, and number 2 equals to 12. So I can have something like this that said number 1 plus number 2. So something like this. So this is regarded as an addition operator. So we can also have the same thing
For multiplication.
let's try subtraction, and that operator will just be what? Subtraction. So we can also repeat the same thing for multiplication, and that will be the operator star. We also have division, and that will be this. We also have what we call floor division. That's what we call floor division in Python. So that also has an operator. So let's say floor division, and that operator is 2/, and we have what we call the modulo. So we have modulo, so which is usually in percentage. All right, and we have the last, which is exponential, and we can have, all right, so let's try this. So when we say addition, let's run this basically. So I can say Python. All right, so if I run this, now you can see the results. For the addition, it basically just add the two numbers together. Subtraction is subtracted the two numbers from one another. Multiplication, we know what that does. Division, you can see what division does. So it divided 32 by 12, and it gave you the results in a what? In a floating data type. That means you have 2 points. So because obviously 12 will go in 34 two times, if I'm correct, right? That's
Yes,
24. So 2 times, that's 2 points. Then the remainder are what? 2.3333. And one of the programming language that give the best precision is Python. It's give the best precision. So that's why I have this floating decimal number 0.8333335. Now about this, about the floor division. In my floor division, I said number 1 divided by number 2. That means 34 divided by 12. It's not giving us the decimal number, but rather it's only giving us the what? The whole number. So that's what I mean by floor division. It will only give you the what? The whole number. Floor division only give you the whole number. It doesn't give you the what? The other decimal parts. Is that understood? So, but the modulo give you the remainder, because by the time you divided 34 by 12, which goes 20 times, which goes 2 times, 12 times 2 is what?
No, the modulo, it was divided by 5.
Okay, divide by 5. Sorry. Okay. No, let me divide let me divide number 1 by number 2, so that we can get the old gist. Number 1 divided by number 2. All right. Let me run that again. All right. Okay. Very good. So you can see that the modulo is now what? Is now 10. That's because after dividing 34 by 12, which goes 2 times, which is 24, you are left with how many? 10. So the remainder means what? Modulo. So it gives you the remainder. That's if there's any remainder after dividing the two number. But the exponential just perform what? Raised to power. So when I say number 2 exponential, that's star 2. Python understand that this means what? 12 to the power of 2. That means 12 times 12, which is 144. But other ones that you mentioned, like square root, cube root, and so many other complex mathematical method, you might need to use what? A library to be able to achieve that one. So, but mind you, even the square roots, in mathematics, when you say the square root of a number, like for example, if I'm looking for the square root of 144, how can we express square roots in mathematics? That's very simple now. So the square root of 144 is the same thing as what? Raised to power what? Half. You remember that? Raised to power half. When you say the square root of a number is the same thing as what? Raised to power half. Like for example, if I'm looking for a square root of 144, square root of 144, square root of 144 should be what? Should be 12 now. 12 times 12. So instead of writing square, because you cannot write the symbol, there's no symbol for square root, right? There's no symbol for square root, but square root is also expressed in mathematics as a number to the power of half. You understand? And if you execute this, so okay, I think we are wrong. Square root of 144 is not 12. It's not 12. So You can use a mathematical calculator for that. So the square root of 144 here is giving us 72. But the idea I want you to bring here is that the square root can also be expressed as what? As an exponential. But if I want to use the square root, like the square root, you might have to use what? A module. A module. Not even really a library here, because it's embedded into Python. So let me just show you what that is, so that that will be something, because it's still something we need to also know about. If I import the math module, so the math module, not resolve, import math, yeah. So, and I want to use a square root, for example, I can basically just say print. So let's try the square root again for the same number. So this time around with a module, with the math module. All right, and how do I do that? I can just, from the module, the math module, you can call the what? The square root. You can see the square root. And what do I need to do? I just need to pass the words inside that function. So this is a function or a method. You just have to pass the number. So if I pass a number inside 144, so, and that will give me the result. So if I execute this, let's clear and execute. Alright, okay, I think I'm the one that is wrong. The square root of 144 is actually 12, but I think my mathematics, and that will be probably because of board mass, if I'm correct. So let me put this around brackets. So I put the half around brackets. So let's repeat this. So I believe we all know what board mass is. Alright, now you can see we have the same result. So without putting a bracket there before, so that means it's basically just saying 144 to the power of 1, then divided by 2. But now after putting the brackets, so it executes the bracket first. That means 1 divided by 2 give me 0.5. Then 145 to the power of 0.5. So you can see this. So, but these are the basic method, the basic operator, arithmetic operator in Python. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, floor division, modulo, exponential, square root. But if you want to use complex functions, you can import the math modules. So maybe I want to find the sum, I want to find cosine, tangent, all these advanced functions. You can do that with the math module. Alright, so that is that with operations you can perform with with Python. So another thing is that we understand that the Python is immutable. So obviously you cannot index and you cannot slice a number. That's not possible. Everything I explain here is the same thing with float numbers too, and the same thing with complex number, because obviously are all numbers. You can add, you can subtract, you can divide, you can do the multiplication of a float number. You can add, you can subtract, you can divide a complex number. So they are all the same thing, because obviously they are all numbers. So you cannot slice and cannot index them. But they also have methods. Do they have methods? So that's another question. Let's see if they have a method. So if I go into my Python shell and I say dir, and the class name for integer is int. That's the class name. Now if you look at it, remember I told you all these methods with underscore, forget them for now. We don't need them for now. But the one without underscore, those are our targets. Now if you look at it, you see that all the methods without the underscore, they are not much. They are not much. That tells you that you cannot really transform a number. You cannot transform a number, because obviously is that you want to convert 14 to a capital letter or a small letter. It's not possible. They are just numbers. They are just numbers. So but the only thing you can do probably is to check their as integer ratio, their bit count. That means you convert them to bit in programming, then count, bit length, conjugate, denominator, from byte, imaginary. That's if you are using with a complex number, you can be able to know the imaginary number. Numerator, you can know the numerator of a number, the real parts, and so on. I've never tried any of these before, aside from imaginary and the real. You understand? But you can also go online, check for the integer methods in Python, then play with some of them. But trust me, I've never, with my years of programming, I've never used any one of them in real programming. So, and that's just that's with Python. So that's with Python integers. Any question, please?
Well understood, sir.
All right. So that is what we can do with number, obviously. So let's talk about the other one, and the next one is boolean. So let's talk about boolean. So let me create a new file for that as well. So we'll call this 4, and let's look at operators you can perform with booleans. Alright, so when we talk about booleans, we understand that booleans data type in Python only has how many value? 2 value, which is true or false. So those are the 2 values you can have. Yes, just true and false. I'll call it zeros and one and a 0, on and off, up and down. So that's it in computing. So true or false, basically. So basically, what operator can perform with them? Most of the operator can perform with them in reality or in real programming. They are definitely not really necessary. For example, let me just say, for example, now I will just try. So imagine you have a value that's saying a true plus true. You will never do this for any reason in any programming. You understand? You never do this for any reason, but just because we are learning, we just want to try things out. So by say Python, and let's execute the fourth script. So .py. So we have what? We have 2. Why? Because 1 is taken as true in programming. True means 1. True means 1. So like 1 plus 1, this gives us what? 0. Or for any reason in any programming, I don't see any reason why you are going to be adding true plus true. So but whenever you are programming and you want to hold the status or a particular status of somebody or status of a particular object, you can always use the true and the false to show that they are active or they are not active. So basically we use those to hold the status of an object. So but when it comes to the operation, I don't see any kind of operation you want to be performing on that. So and same thing goes for the methods too. I don't think they have any methods, but let's check. So if I go into my Python interactive shell and I say dir and I check for bool. So bool is the class name for boolean data type. So if you look at these two, same thing, just like the number 2, they have little or no methods you can perform of them. So this is for you to know that outside of all of this, from what we have learned so far, which one will you think is the most powerful data type between string, integer, and numbers, booleans? Which one do you think will be the most the most powerful data types?
That string should be one.
So the string will be, obviously, you understand, but that is debatable anyway. So because it has many methods doesn't mean it's the most powerful, but at least from what we have learned so far, so good, just for us to be able to capture the knowledge. So it's that string is more powerful in this sense. It has indexing, it has slicing, it has a lot of methods you can perform, and booleans and numbers do not have that. Alright, so that is that for boolean too. So you should understand string very well. Alright, let's move to the next one, and that will be list. So list.py. Any question before I move on? Any question?
Oh, yes, sir.
Alright, so list data types. So already we've now to identify a list data type in Python. So a list definitely is to store data in what? In a square bracket. So let me just move one of our example from here. So let's move this guy. So I can have a list of fruits. I can also have a list of what other list should we have? Let's have a list of numbers. So So if I start with square bracket, so I can have 33, 8.90, I can have 12.1, I can have just random numbers, and basically and like that. So these are lists. You can also check the type, just like we learned in the earlier class. You can check the types of,
Type,
yeah, you can say print, then you check the type, and then
number.
you give the name of the name of this guy inside. So no, the name of the object. So just like this. You can also do the same thing for numbers too.
Numbers.
So let's run that. So you can see this. So the both of them belong to a class name list, irrespective of the data that we have inside them. You can see in the first list they all contain what? Strings. The second list contain both integers and floats, but it's not telling us whether it's a string or it's a float. No, because the whole data types we are looking for is whether fruit or number, and fruit is what is a list. What is inside does not matter to Python. Numbers is a list. What's inside does not matter to Python. So that is it. Now we've explained that a list data type is what is mutable. Is mutable. That means you can change it. You can change it. But before we move to that, we can also concatenate. You can also concatenate a list. If I'm correct, you can also concatenate a list. Let's check that. So it means I can say print concatenate, can concatenate two or more lists together. So I can say fruits, and what operator do you think I will use concatenate this? That will be the plus. So plus number. So let's add a kind of space between them. So let's execute this. Oh, same that is not possible actually. Can only concatenate. Okay, you can only concatenate a list to a list, not a list to a string. Yeah. So let's move this. So it said it can only be a list to a list, not a string to a list. So let's run that again. Now you can see. Alright, and this is interesting. This is interesting because you concatenate them. Not only that you concatenate them, it will also what it make it to look as if they are one. So this is very interesting because now you're supposed to have like two lists, but now it bring them together. It's like joining them together to form a single list. So which is why that string was not necessary. All right. So if you understand that we can also concatenate a string, a list. Now let's look at the. Let me look at the how to access before we move down to the method. So accessing a list, and you know that when it comes to programming or Python, whenever you want to access anything, it has to do with what? Indexing or slicing. Anyone. Indexing means one at a time. So if I want to if I want to index a fruit, for example, if I want to index the second item in the fruit, what will be the result? The second item in the fruit.
Print.
Yes. Go ahead.
Fruits.
I will need to call the name of the fruit, then a square bracket, then the position. So you said one, that's the second item. So, and that should be correct. So second item is what? Is mango. That's indexing. So what if I want to slice the second and the third item? To slice it together, second and the third item. Second and third item. That would be what?
One semicolon 4.
So 1 2
Second and third.
Is it 1 to 4? The second and the third. I mean these two. Is that not supposed to be 3? Is that not supposed to be 3?
Okay.
That's supposed to be 3.
Go.
So like that.
Okay.
So that's indexing and slicing for you. So nothing so special. So the same way, now let's look at the method. What are the method? Obviously, so let me use the Python interactive shell to check what are dir. The class name for any list is list. Now if you look at that, this also has some dunder method, which to now we are not looking at them for now. But if you look at this, these are the activities that you can perform with what? A list. So list methods, I'm not going to go through all of them. I will still leave them to make research on, but you can see that in a Python list we can do what? We can append a new item. That means we can add a new item, we can clear all the items, we can copy the items from one object to another object, we can count the occurrence of an item within a list, we can extend the item. Extend and append, almost the same thing. Append, add one item at a time. Extend, add multiple items at a time. You can check the index of an item in a list. You can insert an item. This insert tool also work like append and extend, but append, which added one item at a time, or you add it to the end of the list. Extend, which added multiple item at a time, add it the multiple item to the end of the list. But with insert, you can insert that particular item to a specific location that you want. Pop is the same as what? Saying remove. So but pop will pop the last item, just like the way you have a stack of plates in your kitchen. When you have a stack of plates in your kitchen, the first plate on the stack will be the first one you remove. That means you pop it out. So first in, last out. Remove is also like pop too, but remove, you can remove a specific item based on what? On a position. It doesn't necessarily have to be what? The first item or the last item rather. Reverse, we all know what reverse will do. That means you will take the list in a specific order and it will reverse it for you. Sort means sort, that means rearrange it whether in ascending order or descending order. So I've just broken down everything about what? A list. So list is also one of the data type that is very, very important to you as a developer, either as a DevOps engineer or as a programmer. You understand? Very, very important. So let's look at some of them basically. So I'm going to be working with the list. So let's append, extend, and insert. So if I go ahead and say print, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so let me exit out of my shell. So if I say print, so let's add a new item. So using what? Append. Let's append. Now to the fruits, so you just need to say dot append, call the append method, and you can see it's append object to the end of the list. So you need to give an argument which must be a what? A string. So let's say I want to append something, maybe another fruit. Can I get the name of a fruit? Pawpaw. Pawpaw is a kind of fruit. Alright, something like this. So these are your append, and this will append it to the what? To the end of the list. Okay. That's another thing we also need to talk about. Now, after appending this, right? So this just append it. I'm supposed to like print it out. So let me do this code this way. So please pay attention. So I say fruit dot append.
So add something, Harry.
So I need to like call.
You not add anything.
No, I added now. Look at what I'm adding.
It pop up.
Yes, I say fruit, which is this variable, dot append. And what am I appending? Purple. So I'm supposed to be calling this what? I'm supposed to be calling this fruits. So which is the variable. So if I run this now, so you can see we have what? We have purple. So that's what I mean by append. He added a new item, but to the end of the what? To the end of the list. Is that clear?
Yes.
All right. So let's also look at inserts. So when we talk about inserts, so
So, for example, where just to understand something, there's no need for you to do it. Like, I just want to get in what scenario can we use this kind of add something to list, remove something from the list on
in
DevOps.
in any situation, it doesn't have to be like in DevOps. Basically, you understand. If I'm creating an automation, you understand, and probably I need to move some files from a directory to another directory. Maybe you are trying to look for maybe in a directory. I'm looking for only the CSV or the JSON file so that we can filter them and move them to another place. You can use a append to add new item. Don't worry, by the time we are looking at project base, when we look at project base, we look at project base that can make us understand all of this. You get. But when it has to do with okay, something already exists, we now want to add a new item to it, no doubt it's going to be what? An append. You get. But we are going to create project base around all of this, just the way we've been doing, just for you to understand all of this. So just know that okay, it's just like you having a list of things in your house, maybe your kitchen, maybe some your food stuff. By the time you go to the market and buy new food stuff, what have you done? You've added new food stuff so to your kitchen. So that's just the way it is to append new item. But when you use this append method, it only added it to the end of the list. You understand? So let's look at what extend. So I'm going to comment this out so that because anytime I run this code, it will continue appending and I don't want it to append. So let me comment it out. So that's append. So let's talk about what? Extend. How do you extend? So if I say fruit dot extend. So what about extend is that what you can add multiple items at the same time. And if you look at the documentation, you can see it said extend. You can what? Put an iterable. That means you can give a new data to this method using an iterable. That means you can use a data type that's an iterable. That means you can give new data either using a list or a tuple. You understand? So if I use this, I prefer using a list. So I can give a new list of items. So if I want to probably give what? Maybe pineapple, comma. You can also add more. Like what? Cashew. You can also add more. Maybe what? Oranges or orange. So that's what we mean. So this means what extend this. This we add 3 items at the same time. And let's clear the terminal and run this again. Now you can see. So this added what? This added the 3 items at the same time. That's what we are saying. You understand? So that's extend. Let me also comment the extend out. Alright, now let's talk about insert. So the whole add new item to the list. So if you talk about insert, fruit dot insert. So just like this. Now if you look at the insert too, documentation, you know I've always told you a lot. Documentation is very, very important, right? So if you look at the insert, you can see that it takes 2 arguments, index and what? The objects you want to add. That means that if I want to add a new item, I have to give what? In this time around index, insert. That means you want to insert into a particular position. So you give the position you want to insert into. So if our fruit is this, let's imagine I want to insert a new item into position 3. That means probably after what? After I want to add it in this grover. I want to take this grover out. That will be what position? Index 2, right? So that means I can come into my insert and say into index 2, I want to add a new item, which will be maybe purple. So the
Okay.
so
There's no purple.
Yeah, we don't have purple there. So the idea now that is going to move whatever data that is in that position, we move it and put this purple into that position basically. So without any error. So and you can see, so it moved the guava that was here, it put purple. So if you look at the original text that we have here, so it moved this guava and then put purple, and then we have two guava ending it. So you can use append to add one item to the end of the list, extend multiple items to the end of the list, and insert to add one item. I think, I don't know, but let's try this. I think it only had one item too. You can see just a string. So also to the what, to a specific position. So all that is what we need to understand. So let's talk about if you can add, because obviously all this is possible because a list is what is mutable. You can add, you can remove. Let's also talk about some properties or some method on how to remove. So the first one is pop and the second one is remove. So when you say fruits, are we together?
Yes, sir.
Dot pop. So if you do this without any argument, by default there's an argument already. And what is that default argument? Index. And what is the index? -1.
From the position of the one you want to.
-1. So it means that if I say fruit pop, it means you remove an item in position -1, and that position, the data in position -1 is the what? Is the last item on the list. So whenever you say dot pop, you are removing the last item on the list. So let me print. Let's print the original print. Fruits. So these are fruits. So this will be before the pop, and this will probably be after the pop.
So why is it before the pop?
I wanted to print out what the fruit will look like before removing and what it will look like after removing. So this is what the fruit look like before you remove, and this is what the fruit will look like after you remove. So if you run this code now, let me comment these guys out. Let's comment this guy too out. Let's comment this guy too out. And this guy too. Alright, so let's see this. Oh, I've commented my variable out. Alright, back. Alright, so now let's run this and see. Now you can see what your fruits look like before we remove. Before we remove it, we have apple, we have mango, we have guava, we have guava. But after removing, what do you notice? After the execution of this dot pop, what do we notice? We have apple, we have mango, we have only guava. That means the last guava has been what? Has been removed. Why? Because of this pop. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that is if you use the pop without any argument. But if you use it with an argument and you say, for example, -2, you understand? Or you can also come from the front and say 1. If I say 1, that means what? You should remove apple, because apple is in the first position. And you can see. Does that even work? Okay, because I say 1, yes, that works. Now I said 1, that means mango is in position 1, apple is in position what? 0. So when I say 1, you remove what? You remove mango. I hope that is clear.
Yes, sir.
Alright, but the limitation to pop is that if the data is very large, that means anytime you want to remove something from the list, you must know the index position, and that is not possible in every situation, especially for a very large data. You understand? So that is where remove comes. So if you want to use remove, it's very easy for you to say fruit dot remove, and you specify what you want to remove. That one is easier. At least you know what you want to remove. Then you say whatever you want to remove. For example, guava. So, and wherever I see guava, at least the first one, you remove it out. You remove the first guava out, or you specify whether you want to remove what, apple. So that one is easy than giving the index position. Is that understood?
Yes.
All right. So that is that with adding and removing. So another one I can also try out. Let's also try count. So let me comment this out and also comment this out. So imagine I say fruit, and I want to count. So I say uh, let's say count, and I say fruits dot count, and what do I want to count? Let's assume I want to count the number of time guava appear. So I can say whatever the count is, display it here. Like I say, let's say guava count. So this will look for the number of time guava appear inside the fruits, and then you can see guava appear 2 times. So we can use this count. So I will leave the rest for you to try out. Like sorting is arranging. You can rearrange your item in your list in ascending order or descending order. Reverse, that one will just flip it over. You can copy, so as well. So that is everything we need to know together with what, a list. Any question, please?
Understand, sir.
All right. So let's create another one, and this will be sixth. We talk about tuple dot py. So together we also know what tuple is. So let me copy one about tuple here. So tuple is actually immutable, and they are represented with the normal brackets. So that's how you can recognize the tuple whenever you see one. So they have the normal bracket. Remember, what is inside it does not matter. It's the bracket that matters to you. So when Python see these normal brackets, you know this is a tuple, and these are what, immutable. So that means you cannot add to it and cannot remove from it. So most of the functions you can perform with a list, you can also perform with this guy too. Like for example, you can index and you can slice. You can check the length, you can check data type, basically. The only thing I've never checked before is if you can concatenate, and I know that will not be possible. It will not be possible, but let's check. It's good to always try. So for example, imagine I want to say print, and I say vowel plus another tuple. Let's say I have another tuple that is 1, 2, 3. So let's see if this will be possible. So let's say 6 tuple to run our code.py. Oh wow, this is interesting. So it's possible. So that means it's also possible to also concatenate one or more tuple together. Is that clear? So using the plus operator, you can also concatenate tuples together. You understand? And don't forget, because they are also iterable, you can also index and also what, and also slice them, which is the same way we learned earlier on. But let's check the methods. What are the methods you can perform? What are the methods? So let's go and check from our Python shell. And if I say dir, the class name for tuple objects are called tuple. And if you look at it, aside from the dodder method, how many methods do you see there? Just 2. Am I correct? So just 2. This shows you that a tuple is immutable. You cannot add, you cannot remove. Am I making sense? You cannot add, you cannot remove, but you can only count and you do index. You can count the number of times something appear, and you can check the index position of something. Like for example, if we want to print the index position of E, I can say vowel dot index, and I want to know the index position of E. So what will be the index position of E before executing this code?
1.
So that should be what's 1. So as you can see it here. So count, that means you want to count the number of times something appear. So that is also what, that's it with tuple. That's it with tuple. It's very simple, right? You can see that Python is very, very interesting and very, very simple to relate with. Very simple, and I think it's 12 already. I would love us to take some 30-minute break and resume back after 30 minutes. Is that okay?
So when do you say should we
12:30.
Okay.
Alright, thank you very much.
Actually, when we finish.
Alright, I think at least today we should be able to cover the data types and their operation basically. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. I think the next one should be set data type. So set data type 2 is also one of those data type you will not be using more often. So this might be different for those that probably are doing some kind of computation analysis and stuff like that, but it's one of those data type I also rarely use in development. So but it's good to talk about it and see how it works as well. So let's create a new file, and I'm going to call this set.py. So we have an understanding about what set is. At least we know that a set is mutable. Basically you can add and remove from a set, and it doesn't store duplicates, so which means all the data must be unique in the set. And this works just like the way the sets were taught in our high school, how it works basically, whereby you can find the intersection of a set, union of a set, all those mathematical concepts that we were taught. So let's just form some data. So I have a data called set A. So I have a variable called set A, and I say this can be equals to 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. So something like this basically. And let's assume I have set B, and let's say set B as 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So something like this. So these are two sets. Obviously you can check the type, you can check the length, you can index. I'm not so sure, but let's confirm that. Can't remember that again. So let's say I have set A and I say index of 0. So let's execute that. Are you with me? So I want to see whether we can, or you can see. So it said set object is not subscriptable, so which means you cannot index and slice a set. So we should know that. So you cannot index, so you cannot index or slice a set basically, but you can check the length, you can check the length. Alright, now talking about the operators, there are many operators you can perform with them. You can do the union, you can do intersection, and I think that's just the list I'll be covering here. So if I go ahead and check my Python interactive shell, and you type your dir, and the class name for any objects of set is set. Now if you look at this, aside all the dunder method, if you look at the other ones, you can see that you can add to a set, you can clear a set. Basically clear means removing all the items within that set. You can copy, you can find the differences of two sets, you can find the difference, update, discard, intersection. So at least if I can't remember any of these again, I still remember intersection of a set and union of a set, and I will leave the rest for you to like search more online. So for example, now if I want to find intersection means what is common to both sets. Actually, what is common to both sets. So if I go ahead and say print So intersection of two sets. So, and I'm just going to say, so let's say set 1, you have set A dot intersection. So you call the function intersection, then you pass the argument of the set B. So this simply means that you want to find the intersection of both of them. So I think I'll probably need to put this in a variable. So let's put in a variable called intersection equals to this, so that I can then call my intersection. So the same thing I'm going to do for union 2. So let's also perform the union. Okay, let me do it afterward. So the same thing go for the union. So if I say union equals to, you can say set A dot union of set B. So this means you should put all the two sets together. So I can print union. So, and I can say my union, print it out. So let's exit out my interactive shell so we can run the code. Now you can see this. So what do you notice about intersection? Intersection is only getting only the common values among the two sets without repetition though. So you can see that we have 2 here, we also have 2 here, we have 4 here, we also have 4 here, we have 5 here, we have 5 here. That's intersection. But for union combine all the values together without any repetition, and that's why we are able to have 1 to 8. So every other operations about sets, I will also advise that you also go online, search any online, whether Free Code Academy or Medium blogs or Programmers, anyone, just to practice how they works and how to remember. Practice is the best thing here. So just practice them, even though it's one of those data sets or one of those data type you might not be using often. Is that understood? Alright, so let's talk about the last but not the least, and that is a dictionary. So dictionary is also one of the most important, if to me if not the most important. So it's one of those data type you use often, so use them often. So let me get an example of a dictionary data that we have here, so which is our info. So this is what a dictionary look like. Sometimes to make it readable, you can break it down just like this, just to make it readable for people to relate to it. So we have something like this. So we have this dictionary that has a pair of keys and value. So the keys are the first name, last name, age, salary, and then active. The values are the respective values. So you can, let me add more information to it. So let's say maybe degree. So let's assume this guy has some degree, and the degree this guy has probably has a BSc, let's say has a master's, and let's say what other, so maybe PMP. So these are the form of certificate that this guy has. So you can start put them in a list. So probably because it can earn more, you understand, because definitely your degree is not, so somebody can earn more degree, so it's possible. It's better to have it in a list. So that is what a dictionary look like. So what are the operations you can do with a dictionary? With a dictionary, you can get the keys, you can get the value, you can even update the value, you can delete a particular key, and so many more. So because obviously it's also what is also is mutable, you can edit it, you can change it, and all of that. But before I get into that, let's look at all the functions or methods that you can perform with a dictionary. And if you check your dir, the class name for dictionary is dict. So And if you look at that, you can see everything and everything that you can do aside from the dunder method. So you see the following methods. So just like this guy. So you can clear, you can copy from key, get items, the keys, the pop items, set default, update, and then the values. So let's play with some of them just to see how this guy work. So imagine you want to get all the keys basically in a dictionary. If I go ahead and say print, I say info dot keys. So this is going to give you all the keys. So let me put a statement here that say keys. So the same way too, you can get all the values too in a list. So if you want to get all the values too in a list, you can also get the values. If you want to get the corresponding values and corresponding keys, I think that's also possible in dictionary, and that is called items. And you do that by saying info dot items. So let's see the results. So let's execute this, and I'm going to say Python dictionary.py. Alright, so you can see the keys. So you can see the dictionary keys. It gives you all the key in a list. You have the dictionary values, which give you all the values too in a list. And we have the dictionary items, which give you the key and value in tuple, in a list of tuple. Take note of that. In a list of tuple, the whole items were in a list, but each of the key value pair form a tuple within the list. As you can see, it's a tuple within the list. So this is how you can get the properties of your dictionary. So you can also add to it if you want to add a new item, for example a new item to a dictionary. So we can do that. Let's try that out. So and how do you do that in a dictionary? Is by just saying, let's say print, let me say add new item. So and I'm going to add the item above this. So you say your info dot update. So we use the function update, and whenever you are adding, are you saying something?
No, I mean update. Then
Yeah.
call the
Yeah.
position and
This one does not require a position. For the update, it doesn't require a position. So you only just give the value and the key. So you will add it to the end of the dictionary. So for example, I want to add an information about what other information can we add? Maybe address. So you can say I'm giving a new dictionary with a given key, and let's assume the address is Ikeja, Lagos. So if I print out the info later on, if I print it out, so this info should have been updated with the address information. I can see. So we have an address information. So that's how to add a new item. The same thing if you want to pop too, you can do pop or pop item. So basically, you can update. We've seen that. You can also get. You understand? So getting means maybe you want to get an information. So for example, if you say info, if I say print info dot get, and I want to get maybe a particular key. So maybe I want to get the first name. So you can do that. So that will print out the first name for you. I can say the first name is John. And one thing I love about this get is that if the key you provided is not available, let's say assume I'm trying to get a key for maybe dates of birth. We don't have any key for date of birth. So if we try getting that, instead of return an error, it return none.
None.
So that is why it's better than doing this. Better than saying print info and then you pass the key, uh, date of birth. So it's better to use the key method to access your dictionary than using the this reference style, because if you didn't use the get method, if you use this style, once that particular key cannot be found, other than returning none, you can see return what? An error, because that particular key cannot be found. But if you use the get method, which to me is better, if you use it, rather than giving you an error, it rather says what? None, which means it's not available. So exactly. So
Yes, sir.
these are everything we need to understand. Though there's more to understand with practice and more research online. Uh, but trust me, there's not to cram about this whole stuff. Uh, Everything you need to understand is what I've broken down for you. If you can understand the way computer work based on what? On a on three architecture, or let's say on one architecture basically, but that architecture contains three components. One is the input, the process, and the output. So if you are writing any programming language or you are writing any program, the first thing you should learn how to do is how do we get the data into the program. And we've broken this down into Python. That in Python, whenever I want to get a data into the program, this data has to take a data type. So either it should be what? It should be a string, an integer, a float, a complex number, or a boolean, or a list, or a tuple, or a dictionary, or a set. Depending on the kind of data you want to represent, you should know which of the data type is best to represent it. So that is that with data types in Python, and we've looked at the operations they can perform. We've looked at the method they can also perform with them. We've seen the one that is mutable, the one that is not mutable, and so many more. Now, in order to wrap this up, so some of the things I would also like to point out that Python has, and some other programming language does not have, is this. So let me create a new file to discuss this, and I'll call this should be 9, and this will be, let me just call it miscellaneous.py. All right. Now, some of the things that you need to know about Python programming is that one, this guy is dynamically typed. Dynamically typed. Unlike some programming language like Java, which are statically typed. What we mean by dynamically typed is this. Remember when we have to define a variable name, like name equals to John. Now, we didn't have to specify to our program. We didn't have to explicitly define our program that, okay, this particular variable is a string. We didn't have to do that. That is because Python dynamically determine or dictates the type of data type a particular variable is. So in some programming language like Java, you might see them having something like this, str, in front of the variable name. This explicitly define that, okay, this particular variable is what? Is a string and nothing more. So in Python is very flexible, that we don't have to define whether this is a string or is an integer or a double or a list. We don't have to do that. All you just need is what is the variable name. Is that understood? So that's one thing I believe everybody going to Python should understand, especially when you are coming from one programming language to the other. Another thing that you also need to understand about Python is that you can also reuse a variable name. For example, if I say Python is equals to John, later on in my program, I can decide to say name equals to 56. Python will not scream at you. Python will not scream at you. Python will accept it. The only difference is that, because Python is it uses what we call an interpreter. Python interprets code line by line. So that means it starts running the code or executing the code from line 1, line 2, line 3. So when you get to line 4, there's a memory address called name, and John was stored inside. By the time we move on in the program and you get to line 8, it simply means what you have probably taken away that value inside that container and put something else inside. So if I decide to print my name now, if I decide to print name, it's not going to print John. It's going to print what 56, because by the time you get to that line 10, it has disposed of the John and put the 56. So that is another thing you also need to know about what Python programming language. All right.
Yes, sir.
And that thing I'm trying to see other things that you also need to know about Python. So Python, okay, we'll get to that later on. I don't need to talk about it now. So about the variable name too, your variable name should not have spaces. So imagine I'm trying to define first name as my variable. This will not work in Python. So, and writing it together might confuse the user in terms of readability. So it's better to use an underscore to separate your variable name whenever they contain two or more words. Those are very, very important. So I think those are some of the things that you basically need to understand when it comes to working with Python. So far so good. We've know what variable are, what data types are, and data types are stuff. All right. Any questions? So far so good. What is ha? So let me go
No,
on.
I need to wake up from that programming language.
Yeah, yeah. If you know too many programming language, actually, these are some of the challenge. Especially, and the reason why it might be a challenge is because probably if you don't work with them like often. It happens to everyone. If you don't work with a program language often, the one you work with very often, we tends to be you tend to know it better. And whenever you're writing those program language, you only write once in a while, so you start probably putting things, misplacing things together. But it's allowed, or it happens anyway. But to me, that's why I don't really fancy knowing too many programming language, and that's why I prefer Python. So because it's one kind of programming language that I can use for multiple things, right? Even though some people have their views on Python as whether it's being secure or not. So to me, no, because Python is being used by a lot of companies. Meta use it, Netflix use it, so a large company use it. So if it's not scalable, no people will not be using it, and it's one of the most popular language right now. So there's nothing to debate around this. So let me just back whatever we've learnt up with a documentation. Okay, I think I have one of my resources here. I didn't even intend sharing this, but this just pop up. I don't know if it's okay. I thought I was going to see some kind of all right. You don't necessarily have to go and start buying a course on Python. Trust me, as a DevOps engineer, you don't have to go and buy any course on Python. You just need to practice and read some of those things online. So let's say Python data types. So real Python is also one of my favorites. So I think that's what I will share this one with you just to. I think that's what okay, very nice, very nice. So I think this one we explain even some of the things we couldn't mention. Uh, Understanding integers, you can see their built-in functions. The built-in functions are what called the methods. The floating numbers, floating point numbers, complex number, strings and characters. So you'll be able to know what is raw string, what is f string. All right, very nice. So bytes and booleans. So I think I will run. It doesn't have list and tuple and dictionary. That's strange. That's strange anyway. But I think you can still learn one or two things from this site anyway. So I'm going to drop that as well. So just like this. So let's still see if I can still lay my hands on another one. So I'm trying to look for the one that contains list, dictionary, tuple. Oh, okay, this one is a course. You don't have to do that. It's a video, blah 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 blah. Okay, list data type. So I think you can search. You can see a list data type. Let me just copy. Let me copy link address. So use that to support that. So that's for list. And tuple, you can read about tuple too, but trust me, it's not one of those data type you want to waste much time on. Trust me. So we have the tuple. So I will just stop right there. So if video works for you, oh, all right, welcome back. So
I was not seeing your screen again.
all right, no problem. So if video works for you, it's fine. I'm not saying it's compulsory you have to watch, you have to read all of this, but sometimes reading, sometimes to me it's more important because some information might be missing in the video. But if you enjoy watching video, it's good. It's okay. It's okay. So I think with what we have discussed so far now, you'll be able to understand data types and how to get input. All right. So the next line of action, which I don't think we'll be able to cover today, will be on processes. Now we have seen input and output. The only output right now is to print something out. So the major thing about programming that everybody needs to understand is the process. How do you perform processes in the how do you perform processes what do you call it in the programming. This is where we talk about things like what we talk about things like control flow. I will talk about what do they call this thing? Iteration, that's loop, while loop, for loop. We talk about some other stuffs, right? And then we start solving problem. Once you understand all the controls, once you understand the control, what is a loop, what is a conditional statement, trust me, and you understand how to get input into the program, you understand when to use a list, when to use a dictionary, trust me, we can solve any problem and automate some things as a DevOps engineer using our Python program. One of the automation that you can use Python to do, you can use a Python to connect to your cloud. You can use Python to send something to the cloud. You can use Python to download something, just like we use bash scripting too for those things. You can also use Python too to automate a task. So I will try and gather some tasks, some automation as a DevOps engineer for us to practice on, just the same way we learned with bash scripting. Is that understood?
Yes.
All right.